Chaim Bloom doubles down on wanting to add a bat this offseason, as well as talking about a snub in the top 100 list. The Cardinals were robbed, and lastly, a victory lap for St. Louis fans and all of baseball heaven. Thank you for tuning in to the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher. There are 17 days until pitchers and catchers report, so we got to talk some ball and keep you up to date on your Cardinals. And let's start off first with Chaim Bloom hopping on the hot mic and doubling down on the fact that he would like to add yet another bat this offseason in order to get the Cardinals where they want to be. And by yet another bat, I mean a bat. The Cardinals have made no real moves to improve their big league roster, which is kind of expected. We've only subtracted players from last year's big league roster. Now, you could maybe count J.J. Weatherholt as an improvement. Again, moving on from Nolan Arenado basically assures that is going to happen early next season unless Weatherholt has a terrible string, which could happen if the spring doesn't work out well for him. We'll leave that up there. Don't want to apply too much pressure on the man, but he's MLB ready to come up. The Cardinals could still use another bat. Chaim Bloom hopped on KMOX radio to talk to Tom Ackerman and mentioned that there is, quote, some value in still adding a veteran. Tom asked him very directly in the interview, are you considering adding a bat? And he had to say there's some value. He didn't, bubble over and talk about how the Cardinals have to do this and it's something we desperately need, but he did mention that adding a veteran bat would be good, not just for the product on the field, but someone for the young players to lean on, which makes me again think that the Cardinals are going to bring in an outfielder as a depth piece, someone to platoon specifically against left-handed pitchers, which the Cardinals very much struggled against last year. And again, probably in the outfield, I think would make the most sense. He's not talking about how we need the product on the field to be really good, so I'm guessing it's going to be a guy who may not necessarily play every day, at least predicting right off the bat. A little bit of DH spot, quite possibly with that. And Patrick McAvoy pointed this out in his Sports Illustrated column. Bloom, interestingly, also in that interview, I really enjoyed doubling down not just on the hitter adding a veteran, but also what the point of the season is for the Cardinals. I love this quote from that interview. Bloom said, "We're just stacking as much young talent as we can together because we know that ultimately that group, as it comes together and forms our core, is going to help us win." That's what he said partially in response to will the Cardinals add a bat. He's trying to reemphasize, even amidst answering, are we going to add a veteran, is no. I mean, maybe there's some value to it, but the main point of this season is for the Cardinals core to turn out well, and the reason we'd add a bat is to support that core, which we love to hear. Cardinals fans have had too much garbage of letting guys play that shouldn't be out there and not focusing on what matters, not developing a core of players, just letting old guys go out there and run around. It's about time the Cardinals focus on what they have to, young core, develop it, get back to those glory days of the 2000s and the 2010s, and get those young guys ready. Now, with that, Patrick McAvoy mentions in his article some potential options for the Cardinals, and I'm curious in the comments what you guys think about these guys. He mentions Tommy Pham, who we've talked about a little bit. Reunion, potentially, a guy who's traditionally hit lefties well, and we know loves St. Louis, gets along with Ollie. Both guys have a really good, intense energy to them. Makes a lot of sense. Big into fantasy football. We love that. On top of that, Isaiah Kiner Falefa, been around the NL East a little bit on the Yankees. He became an outfielder in the last couple of years, but traditionally was a shortstop, but did play a good bit of outfield these last couple of years. Also, Justin Turner, not an outfield at all, not an outfielder in any way. If we move Brendan Donovan, I think that could make some sense. He'd probably mostly play DH and, again, just try to mash against lefties, which is fine. I've heard he's a good guy. I know Justin Turner hasn't necessarily had good things to say about St. Louis in the past, so I don't think that'll become a fit just for that reason alone, and I'm frankly not sure I'd want him here. I'd root for him if we bring him in, but he said some stuff about the Cardinals I don't particularly enjoy, called us Bush League, stuff like that, so Justin's not my favorite, but if he's a Cardinal, I'd instantly flip. I'm not going to lie about that. Also, again, a guy I've brought up a million times, the one I really want is Miguel Andujar. We've been linked to him. We talked about the John Heyman post a while ago. I think Miguel Andujar makes the most sense. He kills lefties. He'd play some outfield. A veteran on the rise. I think he has more potential in his bat. And a guy who I think we could flip if our outfield stays healthy and a guy like Joshua Baez comes up. Perfect guy to move on, trade if we need to clear up a spot, which is the beautiful part about this. Joshua Baez soaring through rankings, and so the Cardinals have lots of potential options right now for that outfield spot. And again, you guys tell me which of those guys you'd be most interested in. And I read this article just before another guy mentioned in that article signed, Harrison Bader. For the Bader haters out there who really didn't want to see him come back, I would have liked him back. I thought he played well, hair on fire, really exciting guy. Signed for 2 years, $20.5 million. I think that's a price the Cardinals could certainly afford, would have made sense. And so I'm wondering where the Cardinals are at. I'd guess that the Cardinals probably offered similar money, and if not more, maybe just a little bit more. But Bader goes to the Giants, who have a better shot at competing next year, seeing as the Cardinals are trying to trade potentially Brendan Donovan to the Giants. So can't blame Bader for that. He's in the last twilight years of his career that if he really wants to contribute to a team winning, I'm not sure if the Giants are a true contender, but it makes more sense than coming to St. Louis, who are in the midst of a rebuild, as much as we love our Redbirds here. So tell me which guy out of those guys you would most enjoy, or a guy I didn't mention at all. So Cardinals potentially looking to add guys there with lots of good options. Next, we got to talk about the Cardinals getting robbed. We got snubbed. The MLB Network, they put out, and MLB.com, they put out an article. They do a show every single year where they break out their top 100 list. The top 100 players in baseball as decided by their research team. This is different from their other, positional updates, which is all picked by a computer. For those who have watched the show, it's pretty fun to see. But this one's different, picked by humans, completely a group of researchers. And out of the entire top 100, the Cardinals had one single player. And every single team had a player this year. That's not like the All-Star game. They don't force that to be a thing. I mean, maybe they do a little bit in order to feed fans, but they allegedly don't force that. That hasn't always been every team represented on the list, so let's get that clear. Cardinals had one guy, and it was Ivan Herrera, who ended up making the list, 98th overall. I think maybe a little underrated. Hopefully next year he can show more of that. Maybe it's just that he's primarily a DH, so if he's a catcher, maybe he adds more value to that. But that means the Cardinals player that we've been touting and trying to trade all offseason, Brendan Donovan, did not make that list. Brendan Donovan was not considered a top 100 player in all of baseball. And for the folks who are saying that we're way overrating Brendan Donovan, and other teams I'm sure loved seeing that, are probably using it against Bloom. I'm not going to lie to you, at least, in passing, saying, this guy's not even a top 100 player in baseball. Well, there you go. About a 3.5 WAR player projected going into next season. Yeah, I mean, that's fringe top 100, and that's probably why the Cardinals are having some difficulty trying to get a trade in. So I think that's pretty telling for the Cardinals. I think he probably should have made the list, or at least was right around the corner to making the list. But yeah, it's interesting to hear. But on top of that, Mint's just talking about Donovan. I heard in that same Bloom interview that we were chatting about before we talked about adding a player on the KMOX interview, he talked about the fact that he's not proactively shopping Brendan Donovan. We've been applying that, saying that teams have been calling about him. But he said explicitly in that interview, he is not actively trying to get rid of Donovan. He's not the one initiating all of these calls. It's just if a team wants him, they can come and get him. And that matches what Katie Woo was saying the other day about the Cardinals having to be blown away if they were going to move on from him. So between the possible over-evaluation and he not even being a top 100 player to the national eye, it kind of makes some sense that we've been able to find a deal. And I am thinking more and more that he will be a Cardinal at the beginning of the year. But we'll see. Again, you guys tell me in the comments what you think. I'm excited to see what happens going forward. Oh, and by the way, the top 100 list. Can't move on without saying this. Another article by MLB.com laid out how many players on each team how many each team had in the top 100. Excuse me. You'll never guess which team had the most players. Yes, of course, it was the Los Angeles Dodgers with 8. Oh, and of course, Shohei Ohtani's number 1. I think that's well-deserved. I won't knock him for that. Out of the 8, how many of the players do you think they actually drafted and developed? Give you a second. Yep, 1. One single player out of the 8 in the top 100 was actually drafted and developed by the Cardinals. One by the Dodgers. Will Smith is that guy. Buying championships, they say that we don't have an issue. Hello, lockout 2027. Last thing I want to cover with you guys is the little brouhaha happening in Pittsburgh over one of their legends. And that guy ended up giving the Cardinals a shout out inadvertently. Andrew McCutchen of the Pittsburgh Pirates, at least was of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's currently unsigned. There's been a whole big thing of him trying to come back one last year. The Pirates front office is talking about how the door is open, but under what circumstances, and apparently blood is not good there right now. The Pirates are finally pushing their chips in and trying to win, and McCutchen, I think, wants to come in and play more than they want, or wants more money than they want to give him. The Pirates are trying to win this year. I mean, they've done more than they've done in the past. Adding a guy like Brandon Lau is more than they ever do. And now Kutch wants to come back for one last year, and the front office doesn't want it. And one of the local radio hosts of Pittsburgh, came out and said on X that, he's kind of tired of this, quote, 3-year reunion tour that McCutchen has had without any production and the Pirates not winning. Now, in that time, McCutchen's just consistently had an OPS in the 700s, which isn't terrible. That's about average. He's been basically an average hitter. That's not good. I'm saying he's mid. Average and mid mean the same thing, but for some reason, if you say mid, it has worse implications, and if you say average, it feels like it's a good thing. It doesn't make sense to me. He's been average, for better or worse. Whatever word you like better, average or mid. And the fans are wanting him back. Some don't and are tired of it, and radio hosts are arguing with him on X. Well, McCutchen came on and said specifically, look at how the Cardinals, and he mentioned their name, how the Cardinals handled Waino, Yachty, and Albert. And he also mentioned about how the Tigers handled Miguel Cabrera in his last years. And he said he just wants to get that sort of respect and spend time with the fans one more time, the young and the old. And he's beefing with them. So he shouts out the Cardinals. We get some credit for what we did with Albert and Yachty and Waino in their last years, and even with Arenado, giving him that goodbye even before we knew it was goodbye for sure. Baseball heaven, we do it right here. St. Louis Cardinals fans, you are the best, and I appreciate you tuning in to the St. Louis Cardinals Daily podcast. Again, my name is Andrew Teuscher. Subscribe if you guys like what you're hearing. The season is fast approaching in 17 days till pitchers and catchers report, and I'll keep covering stuff every single day for you guys. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.